All right, we are.
All right, good evening.
Good.
We're ready to go? Thanks, Luke. So a call to order this meeting of the City Council, and I will lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance if everybody wants to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Fonzie?
Here.
Councilmember Funk?
Here.
Councilmember Newsom?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau?
Here.
Mayor Moreno?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. If you are watching or listening to the City Council meeting tonight, we welcome you. And if you would like to speak during the time set aside for community forum or during public comment for any one of the items that's on our agenda, you can call 805-538-2888 to provide public comment via phone. And when you call, please let us know what item you would like to speak on. Once again, the number you can call tonight to provide public comment is 805-538-2888. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So move. I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Funk, a second by Councilmember Newsom, and we will waive the reading in full of all ordinances appearing on this agenda. And the titles of the ordinances will be read aloud by the city clerk at the first reading after the motion and before the council votes. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Funk?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Councilmember Fonzie?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau?
Yes.
And Mayor Moreno?
Yes, ma'am.
5-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar, all items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and non-controversial by our city staff and can be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions or pull an item. If a comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item can be removed from the consent calendar and considered in the listed sequence with an opportunity for a member of the public to address the council concerning the item before we take any action on it. So I will look and see, is there any member of the council wishing to pull an item? Seeing none, I will ask Luke, do we have any member of the public that's wishing to pull or comment on a consent agenda item?
We do not.
And I will ask the city clerk, has anybody sent in anything via email for a comment or anything regarding the consent calendar?
No one has sent in a comment, but staff needs to pull item number 6 for a brief correction.
Right, that was my next step. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So the resolution for the parking and business improvement area assessment has a couple of minor corrections. In section 4 of the resolution, it says that the proposed assessments to be levied upon the businesses within the area for fiscal year 2019-2020. That should read 2020-2021. And section 6, it states that written or oral protests may be made at the hearing. The form of the protest shall comply with sections 36524, and it says, and 36524. That second one should be 36525. So we do apologize for those clerical errors, but with that, the rest of it's fine.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the consent calendar with the noted corrections to item A6?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Fonzie, a second by Councilmember Funk. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Fonzie?
Yes.
Councilmember Funk,
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau,
Yes.
Mayor Moreno.
Yes, ma'am.
5-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Next on our agenda are updates from the city manager. So we will turn it over to you, Ms. Rickard, so you can change hats and be the city manager.
Thank you. If you give me one moment here, I'm going to have to pull this up. I do apologize. I was otherwise occupied right before this.
I thought I had my webcam turned on, so my apologies to all of you. I thought, why don't I see myself? And I look up in the corner, it says share your webcam. So sorry about that.
There we go.
You were on before, you just disappeared.
Oh, okay. I must have clicked it by accident looking for my agenda or my my agenda.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The first item I want to talk about tonight is about a fire that we had this afternoon. In fact, right before the council meeting this afternoon, there was a vegetation fire that occurred out on Casanova and Carmelita. The fire moved very rapidly. It did threaten many of the homes out there. We were able to evacuate the residents in that area, and it sounds like at this point no one was hurt. The reports from the fire are still very preliminary because they are just getting it wrapped up. I am happy to say that the forward progress of the fire has been stopped. They are working on mopping it up and watching it at this point. We had a lot of help from a lot of our sister and partner agencies around the county, including Air Patrol and tankers. So we do appreciate that, and the good news is that forward progress has stopped. The next thing I want to talk to you about is the downtown infrastructure enhancement meetings. If you remember, right before our shelter at home order was put in place here in the county, the city was doing a big outreach campaign and trying to hold a lot of meetings on our downtown infrastructure enhancement program. Now that things are starting to open up a little bit, we are trying to pick up and restart those outreach programs. We are offering for people to come and give their input and look and see what we're considering, both in person and online. The meetings will review how the draft plan would increase pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle safety, enhance the appearance of the area, increase commerce, and increase parking opportunities, connect the downtown businesses on both sides of El Camino with the downtown between Galaxy Theater and Rosario Avenue, and will be an opportunity for the public to view and learn about the plans and to ask questions. We do break up into small groups to ask staff questions. So it starts with a presentation from our community development director, Phil Dunsmore, and our public works director, Nick DeBar, and then we break into small groups. The in-person meetings will be held by reservation only. We do have to restrict how many people can be here. We do have to abide by all social distancing and other rules of the state. So those will be held tomorrow, June 10th at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. here in the City Council chambers. You do need to sign up for those. We still have openings at both of those sessions. We do want to encourage anybody who wants to attend those sessions to schedule their reservation by calling 805-461-5035. There will be a maximum of 8 attendees for the in-person session. We will hold other sessions as demand, as they mount. So if they do fill up, don't worry, we will be able to add those. We will also be holding a virtual Zoom meeting on Tuesday, June 23rd at noon. The Zoom meeting information is up there on the screen. If necessary, again, we will add more meeting dates later in the month to accommodate anyone that's interested in learning about the plan and is unable to attend. So please, we want to get a lot of input. We've been getting a lot of emails and other things. We did do a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce board. Want to hear from whoever is interested and want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to give comments and understand what we're doing. We are having free COVID testing at ECHO here in Atascadero this week. This is open to everybody, not just, you don't have to be a client of ECHO, you don't have to be homeless. If you would like to be tested for COVID, you can go to this testing. So a pop-up COVID testing site will be open at ECHO this week. It will be open this Wednesday and Thursday from June 11th and 12th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. ECHO is located at 6370 Atascadero Avenue, and anyone who wants to be tested can register for an appointment at readyslow.org. Online registration is the preferred method for scheduling an appointment, but those without internet access can call 805-543-2444. The testing is free and anyone can be tested. You do not have to have COVID symptoms. This is open to anyone that is interested in being tested. Again, where you can register for an appointment at readyslow.org or call 805-543-2444. Want to talk about what has been going on at the zoo. You can visit the zoo virtually. So since the COVID-19 closure, the Charles Paddock Zoo, staff has been continually working behind the scenes. Obviously, they have to care for our animals and are doing a wonderful job while we've been closed. Under the governor's guidelines, we do expect to be able to open the zoo to the public very soon. The governor's guidelines would allow the zoo to open as early as Friday. However, we will not be open this weekend for sure. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get our staff, our non-animal care staff, back here and get some of the procedures in place. But you can expect that the zoo will be opening next week. There will be a limited number of people that can go to the zoo at any one time. As those develop, we will get those out. But what I really want to talk about and what I'm really excited about is virtually visiting the zoo by going to the website www.charlespaddockzoo.org or visit our zoo Facebook and Instagram pages. I don't know if all 5 of you have had a chance to look at our zookeeper talks that are available to everybody there on the charlespaddockzoo.org website. Each of our keepers talks for a few minutes about the animals in their care. It's a great thing. Plus, we're now offering virtual zoo tours, field trips, parties, camps, and cub club. So we would be happy to have a birthday party that you could do virtually, and we would walk around the zoo and introduce you to animals, answer questions of all your guests, and along those lines too. So lots of different offerings there at the zoo. So for more information or to book one of these terrific programs, visit the website, email zooeducation@atascadero.org, or call 805-461-5080. So lots of great stuff going on at the zoo. And speaking of the zoo, Wildfield Brewhouse supports our lemur exhibit at the Charles Paddock Zoo with a ringtail red brew. This beer honors former zoo intern Braden Bronowski, I apologize, Bronkowski, who passed away on May 5th. Braden's love for animals led her to volunteer for us at the zoo. Beginning at the age of 16, she was very active at the zoo and a big part of what goes on out there. Despite suffering from chronic pain, she gave tirelessly to the animals in our care and was such a sweetheart for all our staff to work with. Part of the proceeds from the sale of this product will be donated towards the construction of a new lemur habitat in her honor. And thank you to Wildfields for creating this brew in Braden's honor and to the benefit of the zoo. So little plug for the zoo, little plug for ring-tailed red. The last thing that I want to talk to you about, I'm going to have Chief Haley tell you a little bit. We're getting a lot of inquiries about our police policies. And in particular, there's an initiative called the 8 Can't Wait. And what are the city's policies on those 8 things? So Chief Haley, if you're there, I will have you talk a little bit about what we're doing. All right, fantastic, thank you.
I will first of all say I'm just getting to a place where I can listen and watch from being out at the fire. And so I cannot see the 8 individual items. I don't know if Luke is able to bring them up for me, but I can see the screen and that's about it. The second time this week, I've been reminded of how blessed we are to live in a county where there is a mutual cooperative system anytime we have a major incident. And I can tell you there were many different agencies, both law enforcement and firefighting agencies that were there and on scene today, helped to put out the fire as quickly as possible. There was definitely some damage to a couple of structures. I'll let the fires get put out first and let them have time to assess damage before they report that back. But we were assisted by mutual aid throughout the county, and we are appreciative of that. We did receive what seemed to be part of a kind of a coordinated request throughout law enforcement, both in the state and outside of the state, to address what is called an 8 Can't Wait campaign. 8 different items that were posed to communities to make changes to their law enforcement, to see if we can do a better job of policing in our communities. And upon looking at those 8 criteria, I'm pleased to report that most of them have been covered in some detail for some time by our department. As many of you know, we use the Lexipol service to provide our assistance with our policy manual. And so we were able to kind of look through our policies as they exist and see that we have very much covered these areas in some detail in different places within our manual. I'll go through a couple of them real quickly and maybe even take a few of them out of order. And thank you, Luke, for bringing the first couple up. The first one had to do with the banning of chokeholds and strangleholds. And I can assure the council that neither chokeholds or strangleholds are allowed by the Atascadero Police Department, nor are they taught. They've actually never really been taught in my career. I don't know of any departments in the state of California that would allow their use. And I can also mention that we also do not teach, nor would we allow for the use of a knee to the neck of an individual in order to hold them down. Our policy does allow for and has specific provisions for a restraint called the carotid restraint. That is neither a choke or a stranglehold, both of which could do serious damage. The carotid restraint, when applied correctly, does not result in any harm coming to the individual. It is something you see used in other places, not just law enforcement. I think the UFC uses it quite regularly, and in life or death situations, it is certainly something, a tool in the toolbox of our police officers that we want to keep in our policy. There is a strict governance in our policy that you must have been trained in the use of this technique in order to use it. And I myself have been trained many times in my career in its use. I'm pleased to report that it is little used. I've been a police officer for almost 29 years now. I've never used a carotid restraint. And I don't know, since my time here, I'm not aware of any single incident where the carotid restraint has been used in our department. But we do have a few people that are trained in its use. Governor Newsom has just recently issued a moratorium on the training of that through post. And so it's unlikely that that will the use of the carotid will continue into the future. I am somewhat disappointed about that, but I'm sure that Cal Chiefs will work with the governor to address those issues in some more detail in the future. De-escalation and the requiring of de-escalation is another. And I can honestly say that is really throughout our policy. We advocate for de-escalation whenever possible. It's mentioned in many of our policies. We have, as part of our response to this, listed the policies where that can be found on our website. We would encourage people to go to the police department website to see that. Our entire policy manual is actually posted on the City of Atascadero website under the police department page as well. And so you, as a member of the public, would have every ability to go through the entirety of our policies and look for sections such as the ones I've pointed out, where we describe and mandate de-escalation whenever possible for our people. Requiring warnings before shooting. The police department does require warnings for certain things, not for all of them. Anytime we're going to use the taser, for instance, which is a brand of a kinetic energy device, we require that our officers warn someone prior to its use. There are instances that are outlined in our policy where an officer would be required to give a warning prior to using deadly force in the form of a firearm. And our policy also does allow for the fact that sometimes that's just not possible. Sometimes things require such immediate action that there's no way that our officers would be able to do that. And so there's provision for both within our policy. We do use a force in our policy, including deadly force, but it is a last resort. And one of the requests of the 8 Can't Wait is to exhaust all other means before shooting. And certainly we do expect through our policy that officers will consider and use other means less than deadly force if at all possible. We have to understand that there are certain circumstances under which no other means are possible and we must use deadly force. And so those things are articulated in our policy. And I think we've done a good job of complying both with state law and with good common practice there. Duty to intervene, also in our policy, if we see someone else using unreasonable force, we must take action. And that use of force must be reported to a supervisor as well. Banning of shooting vehicles is another one, and we do not advocate that. It is not 100% forbidden, but it is strongly discouraged. It is rarely effective. We encourage other options, such as getting out of the way of the vehicle before shooting in it. We do prohibit certain actions, such as shooting a firearm to disable a vehicle. That is a non-effective use of a firearm as far as I'm concerned, and most other law enforcement entities would agree with me. And so it is restricted under our policy, and we would discourage anyone shooting at a moving vehicle. It is still in there as a potential last resort. One thing that was mentioned in the 8 Can't Wait campaign is the idea of a use of force continuum. And that is really kind of an outdated concept, something that was discontinued in law enforcement many years ago. And we have adopted and do hold to approach the use of force that is a force options mandate. We outline these uses of forces in a number of different policies. The use of force is one of the most regulated forms of conduct within our policy, and so it is outlined in a good many places where we require our officers to thoroughly consider the type of force that's being used, the manner in which they're using it, and the implications of that use. And so we really are constantly working to improve and seek out new training and new methods of force that can be used that are what we consider less than lethal force There has been a movement as well on the part of the state legislature to restructure the definitions of some of our use of force. And so we constantly are going back in, looking at our training and making sure that we are up to date. But if you refer to both the webpage and the sections that we've listed, you'll see that in many different places within our policy, we address those issues thoroughly. And then the last one in the 8 Can't Wait is the idea of requiring comprehensive reporting. That has always been the case. I'm, of course, limited to my knowledge of law enforcement from a California perspective. And so I don't know that there are departments who are not required to do this, but I know that in the state of California, comprehensive reporting is a requirement, especially in those instances where we are required to use force. In addition to a police report that's prepared, there's also a document that is prepared anytime we use force in the arrest of a suspect, and that document is reviewed, and we keep track of all of those. And on a yearly basis, we do a reporting to the state regarding any use of force that would require someone to seek medical attention as a result of the use of force, any form of what we would call great bodily injury. And so our policy manuals spell this out very well as well. And we've listed a couple of sections where we document what is required for reporting, and especially reporting of use of force. All in all, I believe that our department has done a very good job of kind of comprehensively looking at these issues already. I tend to generally believe that the state of California is really at the forefront of most of these kinds of issues anyway. And I'm pleased to report to you that I think we've covered them all very well. I would not advocating any wholesale changes to our policy, but I will assure you that we have been in communication with Lexipol, the experts in the field, and we have received communication from them that they will communicate to us anything that they find in the policy manuals that we utilize from them that is not in keeping with both state law, court decisions, best practices, and then we also get to put a little bit of our own flavor in there and say what's best for our community as well. And so I feel that we're in good standing, and pretty pleased to report that I'm proud of what we have put forward as a product for council to review. And that's about it for that.
And that's the end of my report. So if the council has any brief questions, I'd be happy to answer or have the chief answer.
Sure thing. So let's just remember with questions, we need to keep it very much to questions, because this wasn't an agendized item, so we shouldn't be making statements or things like that, but some clarifying questions, let's go ahead and ask any if we have them. So Councilmember Funk, I think I saw your hand.
Yes, and first I want to thank the city for putting up the information that the chief has done. And to clarify, would it be possible at some point to have the council receive a copy of the report to the state on any use, on the most recent report to the state on any use of force that involved, that needed medical care?
I would say that there might be some information we could give council, but certainly some of that would be confidential in nature just due to medical privacy for the individual and some other things. So certainly there might be some information that we would be able to provide to council.
Yeah. Brief summary, quantification would be helpful and support the objectives here that build trust. Secondarily, on the COVID question, the COVID testing for the city manager, fairly recently the county changed its policy and encouraged people who don't have symptoms to get tested because it helps the county to understand where the virus is and isn't being transmitted if more people are tested. Is that still the situation?
That is still the situation. They want to test as many people as possible, and anyone who wants to be tested can register to get tested.
Very good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, both Ms. Rickard and Chief, thank you very much for your reports. Appreciate it. So we will move on to community forum. Community forum portion of our meeting is for persons that want to address the council on any matter that's not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and community forum will be limited to a maximum of 30 minutes. I do realize that tonight there's a possibility that we could have more individuals wanting to speak at community forum, and if that is the case, then we will stop community forum and recess after 30 minutes and then continue any community forum that might be requested after our agendized items. So any speakers, again, you have 3 minutes, and any member of the public, please state your name for the record. And we've got a timer going, and we'll let you know when your time is up. So please state your name for the record before making comments. And I will start by asking Luke if there are any callers wishing to speak at community forum.
Yes, we have a couple callers. Our first caller is Pastor Wayne Rittering.
Good evening. This is Pastor Wayne Rittering, Lutheran Church of the Redeemer here in the Atascadero. And I'd like to begin with a prayer for the council and for our state and nation. And then I also would like to make some comments about the proposed Barrel Creek project, because I live up here at the colony at Apple Meadows. Let's begin with the prayer. Almighty God, you have given us this good land as our heritage. Grant that we remember your generosity and constantly do your will. Bless our land with honest industry, truthful education, and an honorable way of life. Save us from all violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance, and from every evil course of action. Grant that we who came from many nations with many different languages may become a united people. Support us in defending our liberties, and give those to whom we have entrusted the authority of government the spirit of wisdom, that there may be justice and peace in our land. When times of prosperity come, may our hearts be thankful, and in times of trouble, do not let our trust in you fail. We ask all this through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. Amen. About the Barrel Creek project, I've been talking to some of my neighbors, and their concerns are, first of all, the dramatic increase of traffic that it would propose. We already have a problem with people driving fast on Del Rio. The second concern is the privacy, because the proposed townhomes would be more than 1 story tall. The people who live on the south side of Del Rio, the people in the townhomes could potentially look down into their yards and windows. The third concern is negative impact on property values. The fourth would be the food bank, which has served the community here for many years, would either have to be closed or relocated. And it has been a great benefit to the poor and homeless. The fifth concern is, and this is important, the huge increase in population density would dramatically change the rural character of our neighborhood, which we would love to preserve. And then the last concern is the increase in noise and crime. And so for all these reasons, I would like to encourage that this Barrel Creek project would not be approved. Thank you. And good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Rittering. Our next speaker.
Our next caller is Jeff Ostlin.
resident business. Good evening, Council, resident of Atascadero and business owner. Couple of concerns. Barrel Creek is definitely a concern. We have not seen any outreach yet from the developer, and I'm hoping that they're going to outreach further. Secondly, as far as the chief spoke regarding the police policies, my wife actually looked at all of that and in detail this week and thought our city was doing a very good job in our police policies. And we have witnessed de-escalation several times by the Atascadero police. So I will put a plug there that they are doing a pretty good job. Lastly, the El Camino corridor between Del Rio and lack of better, San Anselmo, we have a lot of construction going on. Just past Grocery Outlet, we have that big area where they are putting housing in, that 3-year project. And yesterday they changed the lanes and they put K-rail up and pushed traffic over to the right, the left, and everything else. I didn't catch that last night, but I caught it this morning. That's a 45-mile-an-hour area that immediately drops to a 25 now with major lane changes in the dark. I'm requesting that the city take action and require them to put 2 VMS boards up, which are called variable message boards, that warn our residents and our drivers before you see these little signs on the street and the drastic change from 45 to 25 miles an hour. Thank you. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Next caller.
Our next caller is Kylie Bennett.
Hi, my name is Kylie Bennett, and I am a resident of Atascadero. I am calling in support of the statement that was put out from the local Black-led group, Race Matters, SLO County, which was sent to all San Luis Obispo County municipalities, including our town of Atascadero. This statement includes demands such as, quote, diverting funds from law enforcement and incarceration toward community services, mental health, and community nonprofits, end quote, and establishing immediate increased oversight and accountability and harm reduction policies for policing, and reviewing and reporting on a more detailed policy demand document. I was very pleased to hear the police chief Haley review the city policy for policing compared to those of the 8 Can't Wait policy recommendations. However, there are still remaining issues outlined in the statement from Race Matters SLO regarding increasing community-based, meaningful oversight of city police, ongoing effort to reduce police response to issues that are better handled by other skilled professionals, and to that end, reducing the inflated policing budget in favor of more community-based and health and human services. I support these demands given from Race Matters SLO, and I expect that the city of Atascadero will take this request seriously and look forward to a response to their statement, including a detailed report on these policy requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Is there another caller, Luke?
We have no additional callers.
Okay. And I will ask our city manager or our city clerk if there are any comments received by email to be read into the record.
Yes, we have one comment received by email. It is from Ron Kroll. He is the CEO at Mid-State Solid Waste and North County Recycling. He states, "Good evening, Honorable Mayor Moreno and council members. My name is Ron Kroll. I'm the CEO of Mid-State Solid Waste and Recycling and North County Recycling, a locally owned and operated facility in Paso Robles, California. If at any time after your current contract ends, we may be of service to you and the community you serve, we stand prepared to respond appropriately and completely to any RFP. Throughout the North County, we provide comprehensive solid waste and recycling services for residential and commercial customers. Our menu of services include automated collection services for carts and commercial bins, processing and recycling of solid, C&D commingled recycling, and composting of green and food waste. Our North County Recycling Facility currently is a processor and recycling facility for the city, accepting C&D commingled recycling, green and food waste streams. Additionally, we complete the recycling loop or process with selling our compost, mulch, and wood retail products back to the communities we serve. Our fully permitted facility, located in Paso Robles for 20 years, has designed and developed local assets to provide all services required to satisfy a solid waste collection franchise. I've included a statement of capabilities for your review. Thank you for your time this evening. I look forward to hearing from you with any questions or thoughts and expanding our relationship. Stay safe and be well. Ron Krall, CEO, Midstate Solid Waste, North County Recycling. And that is our only comment received by email for Community Forum.
Rochelle, this is Luke.
I thought there were a couple of others.
Yes, we received 2 more. I have those up right now, Mayor.
Okay.
Let me read those. First, our next commenter is Melissa Egger. Mayor and City Council members, in light of recent events regarding police minority relations, I would like to hear what the City Council plans to do to ease these tensions in our community. I would like for the Council to expand existing efforts and explore new opportunities to support people of color and the historically disenfranchised. Investing more funds in community development for additional low-income housing projects, mental health services, rehabilitation, job housing placement services, increase monetary support for ECHO, and focus on public education at all levels are just a few ways to create a stronger community where policing can be saved for what it is most needed. Divesting these duties from law enforcement will reduce the strain on the police force while better serving the community. Distinct from the diversion of funds, I also challenge the Council to propose what we are going to do as a community to create lasting cultural changes that ensure inclusion and comfort of all people. Regards, Melissa Egger. And our final email comment is from Barbara Torrey Workman. My name is Barbara Torrey Workman, and I'm an Atascadero resident. Black lives matter, and as a community, we must protect and uplift Black lives. Those of us who have the privilege to learn about racism rather than experience it in our daily lives must do better. We must educate ourselves and each other and change this country and our community. My family and I attended the march from Sucking Gardens to the police department on Sunday. Together with other members of our community, we knelt in the parking lot of the police department for 8 minutes and 46 seconds to honor the life of George Floyd and recognize the horror of his murder. I urge you all to sit in silent reflection for that length of time and consider what role you can take in dismantling white supremacy and the systemic racism that pervades our country and our institutions. And that is the end of our email public comments.
Okay. And just in case, are there any other callers that are wishing to speak on this item right now?
We have no additional callers.
Okay, thank you. I will close community forum and bring it back to council and staff. So some of the first comments were with regards to Beryl Creek, and I realize Mr. Rittering and then Mr. Oslin both mentioned Beryl Creek, and I know that they will be doing outreach, and I will ask staff, do we have any indication of when those outreach efforts are beginning?
This is Phil Dunsmore, Community Development Director speaking. We have not received an official application as of this time, and the applicant has not begun their outreach process this time. They're still looking at some background reports and considering whether or not they're actually going to move forward. And so when they do, and when they approach staff again with their application, they will need to start a significant community outreach effort. And right now, we don't have a date and a time for that to occur.
Okay, thank you. And so I would encourage anybody who's interested in, just to be following that and keeping on top of that. And when the community outreach does come along, to please participate. And then we also had the comment from Mr. Oslin regarding the construction on El Camino, the changing in the speed limit from the 45 to the 25. And I'm just wondering if maybe our Public Works Director or if our city manager wanted to chime in. Might there be something from a safety perspective that we need to do?
I can chime in on that. This is Director Nick DeBar. We have looked at that. It's that change is related to the Emerald Ridge development. And currently they're doing work out to the center line of El Camino. That's one of their conditions that they had in their development agreement. And tomorrow they're planning on having inspection for sub-bays, which means base will follow and then paving. So we expect by the end of the week, the barricades and lane shift to be complete. This is a construction site, much like going through any construction site on a Caltrans highway or one of our roads. But we reviewed the traffic control plan, and I feel like it's very adequate for what they're doing. I think that the change is not that I'm saying Mr. Oslin is speeding through there, but people are used to going very fast through this section. It's, as he mentioned, it's typically 45. It's 25 right now, but there are adequate advance warning per the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So it is set up in accordance with and in compliance with the MUTCD, as we call it in the engineering world. Adding those additional changeable message boards that he mentioned, these are similar to what we had on Traffic Way to warn folks last week about the grad parade. But these are typically used on highways, and we typically don't use them on our roadway projects unless there's some advance warning, like ahead of time, like construction is going to begin on this day or whatever. They certainly wouldn't hurt, but I'm not sure if we can condition the contractor to do that right now, since their traffic control is in compliance with the MUTCD, and we've already approved it.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know there were several individuals who spoke on the issues of racism and talking about the community demonstration that the peaceful demonstration that took place Sunday. Two of my colleagues and I were there, and I think we're very impressed with the organizers, and particularly the organizers' commitment to a peaceful demonstration. She was very clear up front: this will be peaceful. We will not be engaging with anybody in any sort of a negative or violent way. And I think I was just very proud of our community at that time. And so I realize that there are people with a number of experiences and a number of positions on this. And so I think this is really the time for us to listen to one another, to engage in conversation. I know that our city looks to implement policies so that we make sure every member in our community feels that they're respected and feels valued as a resident. Ms. Egger asked, what are we going to do to, ensure lasting cultural changes? No city can ensure lasting cultural changes. We can be a part of that solution, but that's something that all of us will do, and that will evolve over time. And so as each of us engages with one another, even when we disagree, but having compassion for one another, being willing to listen, I think is so important, and we are going to continue doing that, and we will engage with our community in multiple ways. The Chamber of Commerce, I will let individuals know, and I have been emailing this information as well. Our Chamber of Commerce has a diversity council. They've had that for the last year. And so I'm really proud that they have been looking at topics like unconscious bias and weakening stereotypes, and those types of things, are having those conversations already. And so they are looking at how are they going to engage in this in the most most positive and helpful way. And so we've reached out and said, what can we do to help support that? And so this will be an overall community effort. So I think those of you who have been reaching out to us, continue to do that, and let's keep the dialogue going. And with that, we will move on to our first item, which is a public hearing, the Apple Valley Assessment Districts. And I will first ask if we have any ex parte. Anybody want to raise their hand if they have ex parte? I'm seeing none. We have no ex parte. I will turn this over to our Administrative Services Director, Jerry Rangel. Good evening.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Good evening. Allow me one moment to get this on your screen here.
And your voice is just a little bit low or light, I would say, Jerry.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
It's a little better, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Is that any better?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. Appreciate that. Tonight we have 3 separate items before you, 3 that will require 3 separate public hearings, and they're all regarding assessment districts. I'd like to very briefly go over a little of the common background on these and then address each of the public hearings separately. The Council's longstanding policy is that new development should pay for itself. So part of that requires developers to put in a mechanism to pay for items such as road maintenance and maintenance of common landscape areas, that sort of thing, as these are being built. The developers for Apple Valley, Deanza Estates, and Las Lomas, which was formerly known as Woodridge, decided to set up an assessment district in each of those areas to fulfill these conditions. Assessment districts are not a general tax to the citizens of Atascadero. These are only applied to properties within each of the districts for the maintenance of the improvements in those areas. The 3 districts, or the 3 developments we have tonight, each have 2 districts each, one for the landscape and lighting and the other one for the street and storm drains. A public hearing like this one must be held every year to adopt the levies. The general fund does contribute a small amount in each of these developments for costs related to public benefit. Apple Valley. So this would begin our public hearing officially for Apple Valley. So staff evaluated both the short and long-term costs for both of these districts, the streets and storm drain and the landscape and lighting, and proposed that the levies stay the same from the prior year. So $550 per equivalent benefit unit, or EBU, for the street and storm drain, and $900 per EBU for the landscape and lighting district. This concludes my report on Apple Valley, and I'd be happy to address any questions.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any questions from the Council? Seeing none, I will open up to public comment. Are there any callers? And let me go ahead and give that phone number again, 805-238-8888. Are there any callers wishing to speak on this item?
We do not have any callers for this item.
Okay. Are there any comments that were received by email to be read into the record?
There are no comments that were received by email on this item.
Thank you. The public comment period is now closed. Are there? Do I have a motion for the 4 recommendations?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
This really isn't controversial.
I know. Drafts.
All right, I've got a motion by Councilmember Fonzie. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Yes.
A second by Councilmember Newsome. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Fonzie?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsome?
Yes.
Councilmember Funk?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau?
Yes.
Mayor Moreno?
Yes, ma'am.
5-0, motion passes.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the Deanza States Assessment Districts. And just to give folks a head up, if there's any sort of a delay in the broadcast, if you're interested in this item and want to call in, that number is 805-538-2888. And I will ask, just show of hands, do we have any ex parte on this item? All right, seeing no ex parte from any of us, Director Rangel.
Thank you again. So similar to Apple Valley, staff evaluated the short and long-term costs for both of these districts and proposed the levy is the same as the prior year. So $681.50 per equivalent benefit unit for the storm drain district and $250 per equivalent benefit unit for the landscape and lighting district. And that concludes my report for Deanza State.
Thank you. Luke, do we have, oh, actually first, are there any council member questions on this item? Seeing none, I will ask, are there any callers, open up public comment and ask if there are any callers wishing to speak on this item?
We do not have any callers for this item.
Thank you. Are there any comments that were received by email to be read into the record?
There are no comments to be read into the record on this item.
Thank you. I will go ahead and close public comment period. Do I have a motion on the 4 recommendations?
I'll move staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau, a second by, who was that? Is that Councilmember Newsom? It sounded like you. Councilmember Newsom. So the roll call, please.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Councilmember Fonzie?
Yes.
Councilmember Funk?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau?
Yes.
Mayor Moreno?
Yes, ma'am.
5-0, motion passes.
Thank you. And now we are on to the Woodridge Las Lomas Assessment Districts. I will remind anyone listening, if you'd like to call in for public comment, which we will get to shortly on this item, it's 805-538-2888. Do we have any ex parte on this item? No ex parte. Thank you. And Director Rangel.
Thank you once again. Our final public hearing was for the neighborhood of Las Lomas, formerly known as Woodridge. And these are slightly different. So the levies for both of these districts were increased by a CPI of 2.8%, a consumer price index. So just slightly higher than the prior year is what we are proposing. In 2017 and 18, staff had a series of meetings with the neighbors to discuss the issues of funding for road maintenance. The majority of the homeowners that were in attendance at those meetings were strongly opposed to contribute or set aside funds for long-term road maintenance projects. The street and storm drain district levy that staff is proposing tonight of $401 per equivalent benefit unit is sufficient only for the annual operating costs and periodic service treatments, such as a slurry seal of the roads. Residents were informed that in approximately 20 years, the roads will require a more in-depth road maintenance project, and it will require significant funding. The residents were also informed that the homeowners would be responsible for those repairs and that the proposed levy at a $401 rate, as we're seeing today, would not be sufficient to cover those costs that go out those years. So before the year 2033-34, the district will need to come together and kind of figure out how we can bring the costs together to fund those costs for that maintenance in 2038-39. The estimated cost of that project is about $1 million using current dollars for today. A letter was recently sent to each of the property owners in the district, again sharing this information. Staff has concerns about the long-term maintenance of the streets in the district and want to make sure that every effort to ensure that the neighbors have all the details needed to make informed opinions on this issue. Staff also is trying to compromise with the desires of the members of the district and keep the near-term costs down, and thus is recommending a levy of the $401 per EBU, as you see on the screen, for the street and storm drain district, and $285 per equivalent benefit unit for the landscape and lighting district. And that concludes my report for Los Lomas area, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director. Do we have any council questions of staff? Seeing none, I will go ahead and open this item up to public comment. Luke, do we have any callers wishing to speak on this item?
We do not have any callers for this item.
Okay. And do we have comments that have been received by email to be read into the record?
We do have quite a few comments that were received by email that need to be read into the record. Mr. Knight and I will be taking turns reading them in. So we will start with the first one. The first one is Luke is going to read. Sorry, Luke.
All right. Our first comment is from Jerry and Kathy Lemoyne. My husband and I have resided at 11385 Eliano Street, Atascadero, for over 13 years. We have lived in the city of Atascadero for over 27 years. We have 2 children who graduated from Atascadero High School and who both live in Atascadero, with 3 of our 6 grandchildren who attend Atascadero schools. We are committed to our community and life as a resident of this city. Our youngest daughter is a small business owner here. We would appreciate the same commitment from our elected representatives to remain at the agreed upon increases to the assessments for our roads assessment and landscaping and lighting assessment through 2038-39. We do not want to see any additional raises, only those agreed upon for the maintenance of our roads and landscaping. The letter sent to us does not even clarify a change in the landscaping and lighting assessment. I have not done the math, but I assume the $19 increase is the allowable rate of increase we discussed at the last assessment meeting. We have faced huge drops in the values of our homes in 2008, then have had to respond annually to huge increases in our property taxes every year from the county and assessments from the city. With COVID-19, many homeowners have been hit hard financially also, and your representatives are asking for another almost $106 over that. This amount is on top of whatever share the city gets of our property taxes and the Mello-Roos tax also. We cannot handle much more taxation. We are asking you to stay with the agreed upon maintenance only schedule agreement. Jerry and Kathy Lemoyne.
I have an email from Gary Adams. Mr. Adams states, please be advised that my wife Charlotte and I both strongly object to the proposed annual levy of $527 per EBU for the benefit assessment district. The proposed assessment agreed to for fiscal year 2020-2021 of $401 should be held to at this time. My wife and I are retired and live on a fixed income. The increase to $527 would be a financial burden to us. The roads are fine for now and for many years to come. The landscape maintenance is okay. Lights? What lights? Can't really see more than 2, I believe. We live in the Woodridge condos. Again, opposed to the $527 increase, Gary and Charlotte Adams.
Our next comment comes from Charlotte Adams. I wish to lodge my opinion against the proposal to raise benefit assessment district levy amount for Las Lomas Street and Storm Drain Maintenance District number 2 from $401 to $527. To continue to raise these levies every year to cover some projected cost 15 and 19 years into the future is not fair to the current homeowners. We have no street lights at all on Calle Milano coming into Las Lomas. The condominiums pay for their own streets and lighting within their development, as likely do the apartments. There are few, if any, street lights in the single-family homes neighborhoods. The property owners in the single-family homes, condos, and apartments maintain their own landscaping, with the exception of Calle Milano, which remains a mass of out-of-control weeds and a few spring flowers. We are certainly not seeing a proportionate amount of funds for street lights and landscaping. With little cost to maintain the almost non-existent landscaping and lighting, this leaves funds to be used for storm drain maintenance and road resurfacing. If you multiply the number of homes in this area, excluding the apartments, as I do not know how they are assessed, by the 19 years for which you are projecting funds, there is double the amount of monies you would need by your own writing of $1 million to resurface the neighborhood roads. Is there a guarantee that the levies paid by Las Lomas will be put aside in a separate savings account for only the use of Las Lomas? Unless there is, I remain opposed to this proposed increase. Thank you. Sincerely, Charlotte Adams, Las Lomas homeowner.
Joseph and Beverly Hale wrote in. They state, we oppose increasing the benefit assessment district fee to an annual levy of $527, adjusted annually for CPI. The current levy amount proposed at $401 for fiscal year 2021 is sufficient for annual operating costs and periodic surface treatment slurry seal of the roads. We are currently being assessed the following amounts. Mello-Roos CFD fee, amortized to cover the cost of the original road work, $681.84. 2021 street and drain maintenance, increase per CPI annually, $401. Landscape and lighting 2019-2020 assessment, $282. Total levies without increase, $1,364.84. The proposed amount of $527 would increase our assessments the amount of $126 for a total of $1,490.84, assuming the landscape and lighting fee doesn't increase. We are annually paying for the cost of the original roads as Mello-Roos fees and paying road maintenance fees of $401 in 2021 for a total of $1,082.84. Why should we pay more into the fund for work that will not be necessarily till 2038, 39? Let the homeowners living in development at that time pay for any additional costs that may arise from additional work that may be needed in those years. We are still paying for the cost of the original roads plus $401 for maintenance. That seems more than equitable to us. In what year do the Mello-Roos fees end? I would like to have account statements for the street and storm drain account and for the landscape account showing the current balances sent to me. Are the monies in these accounts earning interest? There were large balances in both of these accounts in the past. And that was from Joseph and Beverly Hale.
Our next comment comes from Arlene McRoberts. Hello, my name is Arlene McRoberts and own the property at 11,100 Avion Road, Atascadero, California 93422. I am writing in opposition of the proposed increase to $527 per year. Please do not increase our rate. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns. Respectfully, Arlene McRoberts. Our next comment comes from Ellen Woodhull. Hello, we are in favor of the suggested rate of $527 for the street assessment to keep our streets well maintained, but also have many concerns. Can you please address the following at the meeting? We pay property taxes, like all other Atascadero residents, and assessment fees. Are a portion of our property taxes used for road maintenance like the rest of Atascadero residents? Both should be contributing to the maintenance, not just the assessment fees. The calculations shown for future projects do not address how much funding comes from property taxes. If funding comes from both, are the increases really necessary given that the rest of Atascadero residents only have their taxes raised as their property taxes go up? If funding does not come from property taxes, why not? Comment. There is concern amongst the neighborhood that another Atascadero school bond proposed for the November ballot, when we already have 2 plus a Cuesta bond on our taxes, will be passed and greatly increase our taxes again. Also, increasing the sales tax is a concern. Road patching and striping on Halcon recently by a contractor for houses on Santa Barbara was done horribly. It is a patchwork mess, and they only restriped where they cut, making the striping incredibly inconsistent. How can we be assured that any work done with our money on our streets will be quality work? Ellen Woodhull.
I have an email for Maureen Montero. Hello, Jerry. I know others have reached out through this avenue of communication. I am writing this today, June 9th, 2020, prior to the public hearing to say that I am opposed to the higher increase of $527 for the benefit of assessment district. Best regards, Maureen Montero, owner at Woodridge Condominiums.
Our next email comment comes from Terry Legan. Atascadero City Council, or to whom it may concern. My name is Terry Legan. I live at 11310 Eliano Street in the Las Lomas development. I've lived in the development for 13 years and have attended almost all of the meetings with the city. I'm a general contractor and property manager with 45 plus years of experience in the trades. I've managed properties for 27 years, 10 years for PG&E. During my years of property management, I've managed HOAs and apartment complexes that have had service roads and large parking lots. My experience has given me a great deal of knowledge about asphalt maintenance. Because of this experience for many years, I requested that the city provide the Las Lomas owners with a reserve study for the streets and storm drains. A proper reserve study would give the homeowners information regarding future maintenance requirements and cost. It wasn't until 2 years ago that city staff attempted to provide this information. My experience over the years has led me to believe that a reserve study is just a guideline and may not actually hold true in practice. I found that with asphalt, if you keep up with the maintenance and care of the trouble spots, you can avoid a total replacement. I know the city has been collecting money from the owners for at least the 13 years that I've been here. To date, other than the work done under the contractor's bond, the city has done nothing to our streets. Based on my knowledge of asphalt maintenance, our streets should have been seal coated by now, which shows me a lack of effort on the city's part to properly maintain our streets. Now you want us to pay a higher assessment for a project 19 years out, when in fact, if the city was maintaining our streets properly, the replacement in 19 years may never need to happen. I highly disagree with the city's request for an additional $145 increase in our assessment and streets and drains. Thank you for considering my point of view, Terry Legan.
And that is our last email. Let me just double check the clerk's inbox, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yes. So that is the last email we received to be read into the record.
Thank you. And Luke, I will ask, is there anyone that has called in since we've been going through public comment?
We do not have any callers for this item.
Okay, thank you. So the public comment period is now closed. And I know we've emailed back all of these individuals, and just so for anybody listening, the recommendation is not $527. There is a letter that went out to let the district know that $527 is what it would take in order to continue saving for long-term maintenance down the line. So $527 is not what is being proposed right now, and there was just some confusion on that. So we know that has been answered, and sounds like those residents will be at least happy with that. And I will ask our city manager to address some of the other, or maybe Ms. Rangel to address some of the other items that came up. Some people asking about landscape and lighting, and that maybe there's not enough of that. Some asking about account statements for Mello-Roos. Did you, and I think you probably have them in front of you, could you provide answers for some of these?
Hi.
I would ask Director Rangel.
Hi, this is Director Rangel. So I did write down some notes on some of these items. So as you say, an account statement. So we did provide an account statement to the neighbors in April when we sent out another notice for them, and several of the ones that have provided comments, we have provided an additional copy of those via email as well. And I'm happy to do that, and it is also on our website, so I'm happy to direct people there as well. We'd like to be as transparent as we can with this. the accounts do earn interest, so that can be seen on our account detail as well in our audited financial statements. I did hear discussion of the CFD, so just for clarification, the Community Facilities District, or the Mello-Roos, is not connected with the development of the roads in this district. It was established about the same time, but it is for ongoing maintenance of public safety and parks, so police, fire, and parks. So it does provide those services that are separate from this particular district and the roads. There was some discussion about Halcon and sewer trench that was done there. Halcon is actually not in this district. We did kind of discuss that with the member that emailed in about that, but that is outside the scope of this district. And let's see, property taxes, general property taxes, other than these assessments, are not used in conjunction with these assessment district levies to provide services for maintenance in this area. So this goes along with the whole policy of the development paying for itself. So if we use the regular property taxes or other funds that the city has to provide maintenance services, then those neighborhoods wouldn't be kind of providing all of the costs for themselves or maintaining their own roads. So they would be essentially diluting the services of the rest of the city. And I think that was the intention as these things were passed back in, the early 2000s, is to make sure that we had lots of nice housing for our folks here in Atascadero, but at the same time not to dilute the services. Not sure if I missed any other items.
It seems like just, some folks are, wondering what's been done on the streets, what's been done to landscape and lighting. And what I'm understanding is you send out a report, once a year, and so they can easily find the work that has been done in those areas. And it would really be if the district as a whole said we want more landscaping, we want something more, lush and, something that, is just more than what you have, you would have to come to an agreement as an entire assessment district that that's what you want, and then, increase that levy to provide that. And so just understanding it's a choice in what each of you, all of you as a group decide to do. And you did answer that well, particularly about the CFD, that is for public safety and recreation, things like that. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Ms. Ligon had said something about reserve studies, and I'm not sure if there's anything that we wanted to mention on that.
This is Director DeBar. I can maybe comment on that, Sherry, if that's okay. We did an analysis 2 years ago, as the resident indicated. And at that time, we were looking at, a consistent rate year by year, because it was fluctuating quite a bit based on that. So we did that analysis, and it came out to be in a 24-year cycle. If you use 24, year 24 as a edge mill and overlay type of a project, it came out to be $508 rather than $372. So that's about a 37% increase over what the levy was set at. So if you take out that edge mill and overlay for year 24, that's where you get the $372. So we weren't looking at cash flow, revenue balance, or anything like that, because we're looking at a consistent levy year by year, and that's what the residents had requested. So we did not do that. I might also add too, there is a surface treatment that's budgeted for next fiscal year. So in another month, that money will be available for us to pursue micro surfacing or crack sealing and some of that other work as well. So we are managing it and the pavement in a very, for the long term, for the lowest life cycle cost. So we are cognizant of the cost of all these things. And as we move ahead, prices come in lower as they have been, then we'll keep adjusting that and keep looking at the cost year to year. Maybe Director Engel wants to add something on that.
I think Director DeBar covered it well. I mean, we're always looking forward and we're making adjustments as we go, but we're working with the best information that we have now, trying to be good stewards as we would to any other city roads. So we are continuing to monitor that.
And that is something I will say about our city. We are good stewards of everything that we have, from roads to our finances to everything that we do. That is at the core of how we operate. So thank you for that. And really what Las Lomas has decided is they don't want to put away for the future. And that's certainly their choice to do that. And so we honor that. We just want to make that really clear that all residents are understanding that. And, over the years, we talked occasionally about HOA, and just so the residents know, if you would prefer to have an HOA, that conversion can certainly be done. And I think we could fully support that. So just know that that's an option. I will look to council if we have any comments or a motion.
I'll make the motion of staff's recommendation.
I'll second. Councilmember Newsom.
We have a motion by Councilmember Fonzie, a second by Councilmember Newsom. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Fonzie?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Councilmember Funk?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Borbeau?
Yes.
Mayor Moreno?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Now we're on to our management reports, and we have one, and that is the authorization of use of inclusionary housing funds for the Del Rio Ridge Affordable Housing Project by People's Self-Help Housing. And this will be our Community Development Director, Mr. Phil Densmore.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. All right. Can we all see the screen there?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well, this is for the what's called the People's Self-Help Housing Del Rio Ridge Apartment Project. And that's an apartment project that the city evaluated last year, and we approved the design concept of it last year. And now People's Self-Help Housing Corporation is seeking essentially a commitment from the city of Atascadero to contribute a portion of our affordable housing funds or our in lieu housing funds towards the project. So a little background on the site. It's right directly adjacent to what used to be the Walmart property up near Del Rio Road, up El Camino Real. It's a vacant site. It's a residential site that was designated actually with our last general plan housing element as a receiver site for high density multifamily. So it was one of these designated sites that we had envisioned at one time for affordable housing, for higher density housing, for apartment project. The address is 2455 El Camino Real. We did take this project to the design review committee last year, looked at the design, endorsed the design, and now the applicants are going forward with construction plans and at the same time looking to see if they can get some assistance with those in lieu funds. Just a little bit more about the project. This project is considered to be a 100% affordable multifamily project. There's 42 apartments, 5 separate buildings on the site. It's a whole variety of bedroom counts. There's 1 bedroom, 3 bedroom units, and different affordability levels. There's actually going to be units that would be affordable to the lower income categories, all 3 of those categories, the low, very low, and extremely low. I will say that oftentimes those particular units are very difficult for us to see built in the city, and this is certainly an opportunity to see those units built, which really helps us with our regional housing numbers towards our housing element goals. A little more about the project. It does have some good on-site amenities. It does include a significant sized community room, a children's play area, a basketball court. There would be a full-time on-site property manager, and the property would be owned continuously by the People Self-Help Housing, currently owned by them today. And they certainly have a long track record of building similar projects in other surrounding cities and here at Atascadero. A little more about the site. Here's what the site looks like today. There's a long driveway that serves some properties to the rear. That fence line you see in that photo there, that's the boundary to the commercial zone that's to the north, which is part of the Del Rio specific plan. And that property is currently for sale. That's still owned by Walmart. And this site gradually slopes up towards the northeast there and would be developed with that project. Looking at a site plan, it's multiple buildings that kind of go up the hillside. So it's really a nice design. When you look at individual buildings, it's difficult to envision how the whole project would look, but it's set back off the road, gradually steps up the hill, dispersed parking areas in between the project, lots of open air hallways that go in between the units. So it's not like a big apartment block with enclosed hallways or doors. It's much more articulated than that. Here's a couple of views of the architecture. It's what we call a mission or Spanish themed or even Italianate type design a little bit, with the white plaster walls, red clay tile roof, a little bit of the sort of metalwork and grill work, and some outdoor use areas, community areas. Here's a look at some of those design materials that we looked at the design review committee. It does appear to be definitely a higher quality housing project. And you can see in this profile how it goes up the hill in steps. So actually, from most angles, you're probably only going to see portions of the building, and it's going to actually look quite attractive on the site, even though there's quite a bit of density here. So really back to the funding request. What they're requesting is an allocation right now, really a commitment from the city so that they can move forward with the rest of their financing. They're requesting $400,000. They call it a soft loan. They would repay this loan over 50 years, 3%. We can actually ask the applicant a little more about what they expect from us. But right now, tonight, they're really just wanting a commitment. They're wanting the city to say, yes, we can do that, or no, we can't do that, so that they can go forward to look at their other financing, and this helps them gain points towards that financing. And what we would do separately is come back to the city council with a loan agreement if the city council wants to go this direction. So essentially, tonight, what we're asking the city council is, can we contribute those funds? And if so, the city manager would draft a letter to the applicant committing to the designation or commitment of those affordable housing funds. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions on this particular topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I think what might be helpful, just, we know because it's in our staff report, but just for the edification of the public, because we do a lot of talk about affordable housing and particularly the need for the low and the very low income. Do you have a slide or something where you could put up or at least talk about the numbers that we're talking about of units and how that will look for our meeting our RHNA numbers?
Yes, let me take a look at that. I'll have to pull a portion of that report up. I don't have a slide ready, but I can probably get an exhibit from the staff report, and so we can show what the, there's the unit count. I don't believe I have anything that's going to show that right off the bat. Maybe I can help you answer some of those more questions more specifically.
Yeah, I think it's just for folks that are watching or listening, if you're just kind of able to talk through it, like the number of, very low income, and just what that does for our RHNA. So even if you can just verbally.
Oh, absolutely.
Go through
Actually,
that might help.
We do have a chart here in the report. So essentially, in this particular case, there would be 7 units in the low income category, 11 units in the very low income category, And then there's 14 units that would actually fit the extremely low income category, and another 9 units, and I'll have to get the applicant to help me out with this one, in another low income category. So they've actually got 4 different categories that they've got proposed in the project with a variety of unit sizes. All of these essentially would be deed restricted. In other words, they would be forced down at this rental rate. They're all rental units, not ownership. And they would be deed restricted for a period of 50 years at these particular rates, which are based on income levels that are set by the County of San Luis Obispo based on the size of family and the size of each unit.
Great. And then a little bit further down on that page, you have how this helps us meet our RENA numbers. We're looking at we have 266 remaining, 171 are the extremely low or very low, of which it looks like 31 will count towards that. And then the 10, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a good breakdown. So out of the 42 units, 31 count towards the extremely low, very low, and 10 towards just the low. So these are categories that we really have a challenge getting in the city. This is not a project that someone voluntarily builds. It definitely takes someone like People Self-Help Housing, and it takes various forms of financing and funding and grants to be able to make this happen in our county.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it looks, so it's 41 because one will be a manager's unit. It looks more like it's 34 and 7. But anyway, we're kind of picking around. It's nice to see that we, People Self-Help Housing has done a lot of projects in Atascadero, and a lot of the sweat equity we've seen that they've done such a great job with. So I just was wanting folks to see this as a different type of project, being an apartment, but I wanted the public to see what those numbers were. So thank you, Director. And with that, I will ask any council comments or questions, start with Councilmember Fonzie.
Thank you. I noticed the term soft loan, and I'm not familiar with a soft loan unless this is just the commitment wording. If this is truly a loan and not a grant, which I'm not sure whether a soft loan is a grant or a loan, but I'd like some assurance or some details on this in the future, that it would be recorded as a lien and be an actual loan. Because if People Self-Help were to sell the property in the future, I'd like to make sure that we're paid back. And some commitment about that on-site manager, because I think that's extremely important. If we're going to be giving him a soft loan commitment, I'd like to have that firmed up somehow as well.
Absolutely. I'm hoping we have the applicant on the phone tonight that can help us answer some of those details. I was going to reach out to the applicant this afternoon right when the fire started over there, and I lost my internet connection, and the smoke was coming towards my house, and I sort of panicked and didn't get that correspondence done. So I'm hoping that they're there tonight to talk about that particular detail about the loan. But as I understand it, it is a loan. It is a term of 55 years with a simple interest of 3%. But I think, yes, we should nail that down and make sure of those terms. And that also can be put back into our agreement when we come back, and we can bring back some additional information to council when we get to that particular level of actually doing the documentation.
So in other words,
right now,
the commitment tonight, this will be part of what we get in return, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Funk. We can't hear you.
Okay,
we can't hear you. There you go.
You are.
I wanted to follow up on Councilwoman Fonzie's comments about the on-site management. Is that something we can actually get in the loan agreement, that commitment? Because we've seen a real difference. And when I talk with residents of People Self-Help projects, I hear the difference when you have that on-site management present. And that's for this scale of project for our community, and all the benefits that offers in being able to have genuinely low-income housing, that on-site management is critical.
Absolutely. I do believe that is a component we can absolutely put into the agreement.
Okay, and then the other thing is with regard to the source of funds, the these are funds that developers doing projects who can't include a whole unit, you know, in their project. These are fees that are already being paid into the city for the express purpose of supporting affordable housing. Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so this is not money that can be used for any other purpose. This is why this money is being paid is to support projects of this nature.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then back to the contract for a second. Do we have or the loan agreement or document that supports the soft loan? Will we be able to include requirements that should people self-help that either they have to continue to own the property, or if they sell it, that the buyer would also be bound by having on-site management and repaying the terms to the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor.
Mayor Protem.
Yes. Actually, between Councilmember Fonzie and Councilmember Funk, they asked several of my questions, and I did have another one on the loan, but I'll wait and see if the applicant is there to discuss that piece of it. People self-help housing has a good track record of, you know, getting things built in the community. A lot of those have been, sweat equity homes where folks have helped put in a great deal of time and effort to build their own homes, and then they own their own homes. This project will be an apartment complex, continue to be owned by people self-help, we hope forever, but understand they could sell it. My question is this: I guess learned recently that properties owned by entities like this are not subject to property tax. Is that correct? So this entire development would not pay any property tax. Is that right?
Councilmember, I don't know the details of that. I have heard that they may be reduced rates. I don't know the details of that. Probably another good question for the applicant.
Okay. Okay, and then I think I'll wait till after the applicant has a chance to speak.
Great.
I'm wondering if our city manager or Director Rangel, I know they're not subject, with our policy, they're not subject to the Community Facilities District, but either Director Rangel or Ms. Ricker, could you answer that question?
It is my understanding that nonprofits are not subject to property tax. So that is what we have been told by the county.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions by council? Okay, thank you. I will go ahead and open it up to public comment on this item, and we do limit speakers to 3 minutes, but if the applicant is on, certainly invite the applicant and we will probably have a question or two. So if the applicant is on, Luke, I think we would like to bring them on first.
Yes, we do have the applicant. Here's John Fowler. And there he is.
Good evening, Mayor Marino. Can you hear me okay?
We can, Mr. Fowler. Welcome.
Oh, very good. Thank you for having me tonight, and thank you for this item. So I've been following in your dialogue on the dais there, so I do have some information, and I also have one of my staff members, Morgan Benevito, who's also in the queue here, who probably can talk a little bit more specifically to the soft loan. And because I don't want to talk off the top of my head and then talk inaccurately. But first of all, we're excited to do this project in Atascadero. As the mayor mentioned, we've done, and other council members know, we've done a lot of projects in Atascadero, a lot of single family, but we're celebrating 50 years of doing affordable housing here on the Central Coast. We are the largest nonprofit, bigger than a housing authority and any other nonprofit on the Central Coast. And we operate in 3 counties: this county, San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura. It's our footprint. We do a little bit of self-help in King City, but outside of that, it's really here on the Central Coast. And so 50 years of reputation and doing quality work, and hopefully you guys have seen a lot of that. We do have a certain way of doing this. We are A to Z nonprofit developer. I mean, we do everything in-house. So we acquire, we design, we get it approved, we get the funding, we apply for the tax credits, we oversee the construction, and then of course we manage it in-house after it's built. And in 50 years, council members, I want to let you know, we've never sold one of our locations ever. It's not in our DNA to do so. It's to provide a service for the community and to take care of these and provide a quality of life for low-income and vulnerable populations. So we have 53 locations right now, multifamily sites that we manage on a daily basis. Many of them, I think one of the council members asked, if you can get up to 40 units, which this site is, it's up to 42, including the manager's unit, that gets us to a size that we're able to put a manager's unit in there. So one of these will be a manager, and any site that has the capability. We have sites that are a little smaller and they're a little challenging to get a site manager on site, but this one will definitely have a manager. That's why we have a manager's unit. And so we're perfectly happy to put in ink any of the things that you've been discussing tonight, because it is our intent to be there forever, never sell this site, manage it in-house, maintain it beautifully for the community, and be a great neighbor. And if you've seen any of our sites that you've said, that's exactly what you'll see if you look at any of our sites. So we're not an out-of-towner. We didn't just parachute in here. This isn't our first job and our first opportunity in Atascadero. I think one of the questions about property taxes, just a little clarification there. The nonprofit is not exempt from property taxes, but the property would be. It would qualify. It doesn't qualify until it's built and occupied. So during acquisition and development, we pay property taxes, but once it's operating, it has the 55, Phil mentioned 50 years, it's a 55-year deed restriction. And if you provide affordable housing, you can get the exemption under those circumstances. So we would meet all those for this particular site. So it would be exempt from property taxes once it's occupied. And then I would say, let's see, a hallmark, we do our own in-house resident services. So we have roughly 5,000 residents who house with us on a daily basis. And we have our own clinical psychologists and what have you on staff, a full staff. And every resident has access to those resident services for whatever their needs might be. It could be, domestic issues. It could be rent payments that they can't do. It could be any number of issues. We're the first line of defense. They coordinate with the site manager. If there's an issue, if there's uninvited guests on the site, they'll contact them. We have very strict house rules, and that's what makes it a little bit easier to manage these, because we're pretty serious about it, and you will lose your housing if you don't behave. So 50 years of knowing how to manage, doing it in-house, I hope that the council has some confidence in that history and that work. We also, you mentioned the basketball court. That's something we just started doing on our sites. We realized that the younger kids prefer a basketball court as opposed to, maybe a tot lot. And there will be some of that probably in there. But so we try and make this work, the architecture to fit into the neighborhood. We want to be a great neighbor. We want to have the amenities and the services to the restaurant. Residents. And so I just want to encourage you or give you the sense that we're here. We've been here in Atascadero. This is just an expansion of what we've been doing, and we're excited to do that. I want to give you just a little bit, and hopefully I'm not running too much over, but just to give you some idea, this is going to be almost a $17 million project. So it's 16.8, and the land and everything. So we have to go out and get money, because the only way this project works under these low numbers, which Phil says are very, very hard to get, these low rents, is to basically, it can only carry a debt of about $2 million. So we got to find the difference between $2 million and the 17 it costs to build it. That's where your money, your soft money, helps us get that, because we leverage that at the state, and we'll bring in another 13 million of that from state tax credit. So this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how we are able to keep the sites looking beautiful, low income rent, and make it all work. And we've been doing it for 50 years. And so I would ask you, if you don't have questions about me, if you want to go into the soft loan, I'm going to pitch it to my colleague, Morgan Benavides. But if there's a question for me from the organization or anything I covered, I'd like to take a breath before I sign off, and then you can bring me back on. I'll still be listening.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so Morgan, I guess Morgan would be up, and if you want to talk about the soft loan.
Perfect, thank you.
Morgan is on here now.
Great. Mayor Marino, can you hear me okay?
Yes, just fine, thank you.
Great, thank
Welcome.
you. Morgan Benavides, work with John Fowler. I'm on the real estate development team. I heard a couple of questions. I just want to provide some details. Councilmember Fonzie had asked about the nature of the soft loan. What does this mean? And so it is a loan. What we're doing tonight is asking for a commitment that we can then shop around, if you will, to other agencies. Hey, the city of Atascadero has committed to the project. Can we get you to do the same? And then we'll come back later in the future with a loan agreement, a promissory note, a deed of trust, which then tags the loan to the property. It gets a lien position. And then some towns will put an affordability covenant as well. Some towns will defer to the other agencies for the affordability covenant. So what that covenant does is it ensures the affordability for 55 years, as John was mentioning. So that will be recorded on property as well. So there's no getting rid of it, so to speak. And even though we intend to hold the property forever, if for some reason people's self-help housing isn't here, the new owner would be subject to the same covenant. So it is a loan. What makes it a soft loan is it's based on what we call residual receipts. So at the end of the year, the property would make payments based on its ability to pay. So in years where the finances were thin, it would make a small payment or no payment. And when years where finances were good, it can make a full payment. It's typical that these soft loans, in the first 15 years, we have what we call a tax credit investor in the project, and they don't make much of a payment, or if any, in the first 15. And then after that, you might see some of this start coming back. But it remains on title, it remains on the property, it keeps its lien position. So it is a true loan, but it's based on ability to pay. So I don't want to misrepresent that it's what we call hard debt, which is a required payment, which would be like a bank loan, for example. And this property will have a bank loan that has a required payment. There was a question about on-site property management. Of course, we will do that. It's actually imposed on us by the tax credit committee. Any project 16 units or more will have a on-site property manager. So we're going to do that regardless. And so we can, as John said, we can put it in the document if you wish, but just know that there's a backup for you. That the tax credit committee will also be looking at that. And then property tax, as John mentioned, it's based on the unit. As long as we have a low income person in that unit, we can apply for what we call a property tax abatement. It happens at the end of the job where we're occupying units. But we do pay development impact fees. We pay building permit fees. So all of that is still forwarded to the city. We're not getting any exemption on that.
Any questions regarding the soft loan or the property man? Any questions of Morgan? Councilmember Fonzie.
Yes, Morgan, thank you for the clarification. I'm assuming since we're such a small piece of this rather expensive project that we would not be in first position as a loan. We'd probably be in second or third.
Yeah, I don't want to mislead. I would think that other lenders that came in with $1 million, $2 million, et cetera, would probably ask for a higher position. I'm hopeful that we don't have to stack too many loans here and you're not 10th, for example. But it is common that a loan like this would be in, say, a third or fourth position, depending on how many entities are involved. So, for example, if we applied to the County of San Luis Obispo for home funds, which is through HUD, and they provided, say, $1 million, what they may say is, well, we'd like to be in what we call the waterfall. I mentioned soft loan based on ability to pay. We would position everybody on who gets paid first, or we can proportionally divide it. So if you provide $400,000, it can be proportional to another lender, and you get a split of the residual receipt, and they get a split of it. That's another common way of doing it, rather than somebody first or second.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions of Morgan? Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau.
Yes, thank you for the explanation. But it sounds to me like this is like having a 3% 55-year mortgage that you pay as you can, which I get. And I don't, this is the purpose of these funds, so I don't mind us being in third position or even 10th. My question is, so over the course of 55 years, you've got good years and bad years, and let's say you get down there and you've only paid off half of it, because 3% is a nice low rate, but it's not negligible. It can add up if there's payments aren't being made. What would happen after 55 years if there's still a substantial balance due on the note?
Yeah, it's a common question. I think nationwide in the affordable housing world, I think this is a very common setup for these types of loans. HUD does this. USDA does a little bit different term, but Sacramento does this through their programs at HCD. And I think the common wisdom, we haven't really hit these yet. There hasn't been a 55-year come up since they started doing this, but I think the conventional wisdom is that you'd either refinance to pay off the loan, or you would approach the loan holder for, say, an extension. So we will continue affordability for another 55 years if you will keep your loan in the project.
Well, I doubt any of us will be on the city council in 55 years, so we'll let somebody else worry about that. But thank you for that explanation. My other question regarding the property tax exemption, that's under state law then? So all of the recipients of property taxes that you would otherwise pay, because I don't know that people don't realize we only get about 17% of the property tax that property owners in our city pay. So there's other recipient schools, county, et cetera. So you pay zero. All of those folks are impacted as well. So that exemption must be granted by state law, I assume?
Yeah, I believe it is under state law. Our asset management team applies for that after the property is built. And like I said, it's based on a unit having a qualified tenant in it. So if for some reason a tenant's income rose over time, you could lose the exemption on that unit. So it is possible that over 30, 40, 50 years, you could have a number of units that maybe don't have it, but our common practice is that they're all occupied by qualified tenants, and those units have the exemption on them.
Right. And I think the mayor mentioned this is also exempt from our community facilities district fees, annual assessments that would otherwise be charged to a new development of this nature, and which those, together with the property tax, really add up to a much greater subsidy than this $400,000 over time. But I assume that's the common arrangement that you find in other cities.
Well, I can't speak to the facility fee that you're mentioning, because we do pay development impact fees as anybody else would. We pay building permit planning fees as anybody else would. So I can't speak to that fee. But the property tax exemption is a statewide exemption, as you note, and any affordable housing developer, whether it be for-profit or nonprofit, could apply for it and receive it, and that's a common practice in our experience.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other council questions of either Morgan or Mr. Fowler if we wanted to bring him back on? No, it looks like you've done a good job. Thank you for answering our questions. Appreciate it. And I will ask Luke, do we have any other callers that wish to speak on this item?
Yes, we have one caller, Tori Keene.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, just fine, thank you.
Okay, perfect. My name is Tori Keene. I have lived in Atascadero for 10 years.
I think that this is exactly the kind of long-term project that we as a city need to do to invest in the future of our city. I know it seems like a lot of money, but it could help so many people who could otherwise not afford to live here on the Central Coast. Some of those that are already here, it would give independence to young people who aren't making a lot of money now, but they just need that leg up to get, to get further on. They could perhaps afford to go to school. They could afford to put their time in a low paying position to move up the ladder. Perhaps even it would give them a chance to invest in a small business in our city. All of those things you all have said are really important, and I feel they're really important as well. So I really want to encourage the City Council to approve this loan for the long-term health of the people of Atascadero who won't just live here now, but will live here in 40 and 50 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keene. Are there any other callers wishing to speak on this item?
We have no additional callers for this item.
Are there any comments that were received by email to be read into the record?
We did not receive any comments by email.
Thank you. The public comment period is now closed. I'll bring it back to council. Just I think all of us have seen what People Self-Help Housing has done throughout our county, but particularly in Atascadero, and have been very, very pleased with that. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a question, or are you just kind of?
Yes, I did have a question.
I can't hear anything you're saying. Oh, okay.
Yeah. In our agenda packets, and this question actually is for Mr. Dunsmore. The letter from People Self-Help Housing refers to the possibility of the city desiring a road to be placed that would run along the backside of the property at a later date for other potential developments. And their letter indicates that, such a road could necessitate a modification to their rear parking lot, and they would be willing to work with us on that issue. Is that something that is built into the already built into the approval of this project?
It is not built into the approval of this project. It's sort of a strange situation. On the Del Rio specific plan, which is the former Walmart property, there was an access road shown that ended at this particular property. However, there was no road access ever planned or recorded onto this property. The vision was that road was going to loop back over to the Emerald Ridge apartment around the back side of the housing development that's there now. And someday we'll need to look at a road section that does go back along a similar route. But since the Walmart project never moved forward, that road never got constructed. And at some point we'll need an access point back there, but its location will likely have to change because of this project, because there wasn't an easement recorded for this particular project. But they do acknowledge that in that back parking lot, there may be some need to use some portion of that lot in the future so that a road can be constructed. But what we have found more recently is there is a significant grade change between this property and the former Walmart property that would make that quite challenging. So in all likelihood, another option will probably be sought when the adjacent property develops. So it is not a condition for this particular project. They can proceed forward, and it's not something that we were able to incorporate with their approval. So we mentioned it in the letter because of the fact that we wanted to acknowledge that at this particular time.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, I had just had a comment, but I'd be ready to make a motion.
Yeah, well, I did want to say, I think Mr. Fowler had said a few things like we're willing to commit to, like, we're going to do the management, we're going to in-house all of that, and if you want me to put it in writing, I'll put it in writing, and I think we would all love to see that in writing. Like, we trust that they're going to do that, but let's go ahead and put that in writing because we would love to see them being the on-site manager for the long haul. So, and Mayor Pro Tem, yes, if you
I agree
a comment and wanted to make a motion.
I agree that, we would like to see those things in the loan agreement. No, my comment is just in why I asked the questions regarding property tax and the fact, not paying in the CFD. The amount of annual, if you will, subsidy through lack of revenue on this development is going to far outweigh, this $400,000 loan from our affordable housing fund. And, we're going to use this 400,000. This is what it's here for, is to help produce affordable housing in the city. But there is a cost to the rest of the community, and I think everybody just needs to understand that by us, approving this kind of project, we are foregoing a fair amount of revenue over time that, and yet the property still would require services. So everybody in town is helping to, pay to have this kind of project in town. But People's Self-Help Housing does a great job, and we need the affordable housing. I just want to make sure everybody understands financially what it is we're doing. So with that, I would move that we adopt staff's recommendation, but to incorporate into the loan agreement that People's Self-Help Housing would remain as the manager, have on-site management, and remain as the owner during the course of the loan. And I'm forgetting if there was a third thing we wanted in there.
Yes. I believe it was affordable covenant. An affordability covenant.
Include an affordability covenant. Okay. That would be part of my motion.
Second.
Great. I think we have a motion by by Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau and a second by Council Member Fonzie. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Fonzie?
Yes.
Councilmember Funk?
Yes.
Councilmember Newsom?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau?
Yes.
Mayor Moreno?
Yes, ma'am.
5-0, motion passes.
Thank you. I think this will be something good for our community. As Mayor Pro Tem Bourbeau said, it does come at a cost, but it's something we as a community have decided it's important to invest in affordable housing. And so this is really a community decision, and that's what we're doing here tonight. So thank you, and thank you both to Morgan and Mr. Fowler for being here and for your commitment to providing this type of housing for not just Atascadero, but the Central Coast. We appreciate you very much. And so now we're on to discussion item D. We've kind of had this on our agenda the last several meetings because things with regards to COVID have settled down a little bit, but now we're opening up and there's always new information to discuss. We will have public comment on this item after we go through the report. So if there's anyone listening that would like to call in and hasn't yet, the number is 805-538-2888. You can call in and listen and be ready for public comment. And so I will turn it over to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As you stated, we have a lot of changes coming up on reopening. They have been coming out from the state slowly but steadily. Last Friday, June 5th, state health officials issued new guidance for several business sectors to reopen. These sectors may not open any sooner than this Friday, June 12th. The new state guidelines address a multitude of things, both those on a statewide level and those that have advanced a little bit further through the reopening process, such as our county. So on the statewide level, state guidance has been issued regarding schools, childcare, that's been updated, day camps, casinos operated by sovereign tribal nations, entertainment production, meaning music, film, and television, and professional sports without live audience. So those guidelines and those reopenings will happen no sooner than June 12th. For our county, in addition to those, we will be able to, with the county health officer's permission, we'll be able to open campgrounds, RV parks, and outdoor recreation, hotels, lodging, and short-term rentals, card rooms, satellite wagering facilities, and racetracks, family entertainment centers and movie theaters, restaurants, bars, and wineries, museums, galleries, zoos, and aquariums, and fitness facilities. All of these, again, will have a lot of protections in place and guidelines and limitations on their opening, but they will start to open. I want to reiterate again, the zoo will not be open on Friday, June 12th, and will not be open this weekend, but we do expect it to start to open within those guidelines on a limited nature sometime next week. Key business practices for these businesses as they open will include a physical distancing to the maximum extent possible, use of face coverings by employees and patrons, frequent hand washing, regular cleaning and disinfecting, and training employees on their COVID-19 prevention plan. Businesses planning to resume operation on June 12th or thereafter must review the state guidance, conduct a risk assessment, and complete a self-certification form that is available at readyslow.org. Go to the reopening tab. There are some things that are still being discouraged by the state. So the state continues to discourage out-of-area tourism. Organized sports that involve physical contact, such as baseball, basketball, soccer, and football, are currently not permitted by the state. And in addition to playgrounds, water parks, saunas, steam baths, and spas are also not allowed to be opened at this time. The city's playgrounds continue to be closed. Just so you know, we are having some difficulties with people removing our playground closed signs. And so we are looking for something a little bit sturdier and harder for people to remove. We do want people to know that we are not disinfecting the playground. We are not making it COVID safe. We are not arresting small children that play on the playground, but the playground is closed. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Councilmember Fonzie.
Thank you. Rochelle, I noted that the hotels and motels would be open for business, but not for out of town. Have they given a percentage that can be occupied?
Not that I am aware of. I honestly have not looked at the state guidance on that at this point. And the specifics. The county had put a 50% occupancy limit on hotels and motels. They did remove that limit. Technically, under the state order right now, the only travel that is allowed is essential travel, and there's very specific definitions of that. But right now, there is no percentage, certainly at the county level. And I have to admit, I do not know at the state. If you give me a few minutes, I can take a peek at that and then see what it says.
Okay, the reason I bring it up, I think it's important for our local hotel and motel owners to be aware of that number so that they can be compliant.
Yeah, and we are working with our hotel and motel owners through our T-bid and other methods. We do have an email list for all of those here in town. And are pushing out information as it becomes available both on the state and county website.
Okay, so I'm wondering if you could get that information to the Chamber of Commerce as soon as you get it so that they can go out to the businesses as well and let them know.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Funk.
Thank you. Okay, couple of things. First, one of the things we've been discussing is allowing businesses to access portions of the street or parking areas or parking lots to expand. And I see some of that starting to happen. Are there any businesses that have wanted to do that we've not been able to accommodate?
Not that I am aware of. A lot of those, as they expand into parking lots and the other spot, that is their private property or shared private property, so they do have to work with the shopping center. A lot of the businesses that are expanding there do have an interest in not just doing this during this COVID restrictions, but doing a permanent restriction. Phil, are you available there to add anything more about some of the businesses, and is there anybody that we have not been able to accommodate?
Hi, Rochelle, and hi, Council. We have been able to accommodate all the requests thus far. It has stimulated a lot of additional interest in expanding dining on a permanent basis. And it's been a pleasure working with a lot of our business owners. So there hasn't been anything that we haven't been able to meet. But there hasn't been, at the same time, it hasn't been a tremendous amount of people wanting to do this. And a lot of places that, to accommodate their needs. But there's definitely been 4 or 5 that we've been working with, and it's been great.
Super. And then with regard, I noticed in the as the new areas open up, new aspects of businesses, that one of the expectations is that employees wear masks, as well as in many cases customers as well. I know everybody's getting really tired of wearing face coverings, but in areas where we can't social distance all that well, but it does have, appear to have some benefit to protect others in particular, to make it safe, something we can do to make it safe for each other. To what extent are our police and fire employees expected to wear masks when they are out about in the community in situations where they can wear a mask safely without it impeding their duties and where social distancing might be difficult?
So employees are asked to follow the county guidance on face masks in public when they cannot do social distancing. This is an ask. There is no mandate that we do that, but we are asking our employees, and we do provide face mask coverings for our employees for that purpose.
Okay.
Any other council questions? I will say, Councilmember Fonzie, I did pull up the industry guidance for hotels, motels, and it doesn't, I'm not seeing anything about a limited occupancy. It does say that hotels, lodging, and short-term rental operators that have large meeting venues, banquet halls, or convention centers should keep those areas closed until each of those types of establishments are allowed to resume modified or full operation. But I'm not seeing anything about a specific percentage right now. But we'll keep looking for that and see if there is something.
I looked at it too and couldn't find anything and thought it was very ambiguous, and I'd like it to be clarified if we can get to the bottom of it somehow, but that may be beyond what Rochelle can do for us.
That is probably beyond what I could do for you. But I am getting texts from Terry and others, and like the mayor, I'm skimming through it. We do not see any occupancy limitations on it at this time.
Thank you.
And I think some of the good news that's come lately is the CDPH is giving guidance that congregate care facilities can put their own guidelines in place. So, we've removed our order. The only order that the county's now putting in effect is with regards to skilled nursing facilities. There has been an outbreak in Santa Maria, and those folks are really the most at risk and need to be protected. But it's nice now that each of the individual properties can put in place the guidelines that they feel that really protect their residents best. So with that, I will go ahead and open this up for public comment. Are there any callers wishing to speak on this item?
We do not have any callers for this item.
And are there any comments that were received by email to be read into the record?
There were no comments that were received by email on this item.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll go ahead and finish with this discussion item and go on to council announcements and committee reports. And I'll just go down my screen. I will start with Councilmember Fonzie.
Thank you. I'd like to report out on an air pollution control district meeting. It was actually rather controversial. The dunes have not been used for the last couple of months because of COVID. And so there's been no camping, there's been no riding, but yet there's been no improvement in the amount of blowing dust up onto the mesa. So the question is coming up that does this mitigation of planting plants and screening off areas for no riding have any benefit? And what we were told by a group of scientists from Arizona State doctorate people that taught there is basically they don't know. It may take 50 to 100 years before they see anything that results from this because the sand has been disturbed for so long. And this was not seen as particularly helpful by many of the members of the Air Pollution Control Board and will continue to be a matter of controversy. I will keep you posted.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom.
I participated in the AIJCP meeting last week, and it was very informative about testing for earthquakes and floodings, different monitoring systems. So nothing else to report. Our next design review committee is scheduled out in I think the 23rd, 24th of June.
Thank you. Councilmember Funk.
Yes, the Homeless Services Oversight Council has had a couple of meetings recently. The guidance that this body gave supporting the application of transitional food and shelter, which locally offers services for the medically fragile homeless population and also runs the Atascadero Warming Center for their application to be able to operate under COVID standards for the coming months. And that application was approved along with other applications for funding that support ECHO and in coalition with other partners, and also include some funding for the Salvation Army to provide homeless prevention services and outreach. A second meeting was held because additional funds were made available in one of those categories, and the body's action and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors was to fund the rest of the TFS proposal that they were about $8,000 short, so fill the rest of that and fund them for one additional unit. They have small apartments that they make available for medically fragile persons that they can support somebody who's at great risk for COVID. And then additional funds were provided to the coalition that includes ECHO for some additional outreach services.
Thank you. Report. Mayor Pro Tem Borbo.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. The Economic Vitality Corporation meeting a couple of weeks ago, Mike Manchek announced that after 15 years, he has decided to retire from the EVC and go on to his next venture. He has been, I think, a very good leader and a really good proponent of economic development. I know of many businesses firsthand that he's helped and the entire EVC, and so very grateful for them and wish him well on his future endeavors. They have finished there's an employer talent connection website that they found grant funding to do, and I wish I had the site to give you right now. I don't have the URL. But beautifully done, because one of the challenges we do have in our community is when you're trying to attract talent from out of the area, maybe it's a specialty doctor or a professor or somebody that's needed and who has a special talent, and they might have an accompanying partner. and trying to, find work for that individual. Or sometimes to be able to attract someone here who then looks and says, well, gosh, if this job doesn't work out, what else is around? Well, now you can go to this website and see all the companies, and it's really about connecting employers with the talent and seeing all that we have to offer here. And so I think that will be an excellent resource going forward. At SLOCOG, let's see what's going on with SLOCOG here. I think I did report, some time back that we did receive $5,000 back of the penalty that we needed to be assessed for not meeting fare box. We did get good news that at the state level, really because of COVID with SB 1459, they have basically halted the penalties for 3 years. And so that is good news because, with our, as efficient and excellent we are of delivering the service and being as thrifty as possible with our rural environment and meeting the needs of those who really need the service, meeting fare box is just not feasible. And we're doing some things to try to correct that. But in the meantime, we have that 3-year suspension, and we are hoping for a permanent fix, but we don't know about that yet. SLOCOG has put us on the list that if council this year does decide to move forward with the downtown infrastructure enhancement, that they're setting aside $600,000 to go towards that project. So that is some good news. We would need to get matching money for that, but they are willing to invest in that to help us move forward if we decide to move forward with it. So happy to report that. And that will be it for me. We will move on to individual determinations. I will ask, are there any council members who have individual determinations? Seeing none, do we have any from staff?
Just very briefly, at the last council meeting, council did ask to investigate different ways that we could start moving towards having our council meetings back in person. We did look at various options between the youth center and pavilion and others, but they all had fairly significant technological hurdles that would cost a lot of time and money in order to overcome. We are planning on doing a semi-in-person, so we do always want to continue to offer the phone-in, computer, Zoom, for those that do not want to come out. We will have limited seating available at the council chambers for those that do want to come in person. There will be a hybrid of staff, whether in person or by Zoom or telephone or other things too. Want to know that's also available to the council, and want to make it available to as many people as possible. So we are working on that for our next meeting on June 23rd.
Thank you. That's good to hear, and I think it will be nice that we're also able to keep the call-in and the go-to-meeting. I think just moving forward in the future, I think that it provides a lot of opportunity for increased public engagement. Councilmember Fonzie, you have a question.
Yes, Rochelle, since you're planning somewhat of a hybrid where people can come in from the public into the city council chambers, would it be possible for the council to actually attend those in person?
The council can attend in person. So individuals may choose to attend. Council members may choose to continue to Zoom. It is up to the individual council members themselves on what they would like to do. We will have the council members spread out. We do have a maximum number of seats of 7 for council members and staff, so that is the most that we would be able to fit and meet all of our social distancing guidelines, and we would allow up to 15 members of the public. We will have people helping with the elevator to assure social distancing in the elevator, along with sanitation techniques of the microphone and other places in between speakers so that we can meet those too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for getting easier.
Yeah.
Good night.
Night.
Night.